recording.
I will start the live. Very good afternoon to one and all present here. Better than 1,000 days of diligent study is one day with a great teacher. With this Japanese proverb, I welcome all of you for the third day, second session. I hereby call upon our principal and convener of this faculty development program, our beloved Professor Dr. Gauri Ramesh ma'am, to give welcome note on this session.
Thank you, Shyam, and once again, good afternoon to one and all present here for the afternoon session of the third day of the FDP program. On behalf of the Directorate of Legal Studies and Chennai Dr. Ambedkar Government Law College, Pudupakkam, I am truly delighted to welcome the ever dynamic resource person for today, my beloved brother, Professor Dr. A. David Ambrose, sir, former HOD of the Department of Legal Studies, Madras University. Happy and proud to say that we both are batchmates of 1997 recruitment in the Dr. Ambedkar Government Law College, Chennai. Sir was the only PhD holder in law in our batch at the time of our recruitment. I still remember how he used to come to college daily by bus from his residence at Maduranthagam and stay back until 9:30 p.m. to take the LLB evening college class, which existed at that time. He was the uncrowned king of the evening college students, who were actually mostly IAS and IPS cadre officers. His hard work, sincerity, and perseverance paved way for a shift from a lecturer in Government Law College, Chennai, to professor and later HOD in the Department of Legal Studies at Madras University. Sir, I will always cherish the good old days of our batch, which had a special sibling bondage between all of us. I wholeheartedly thank you, sir, for readily accepting our invite and encouraging us in our humble initiative. Sir's topic for today is understanding the nuances of environmental law teaching. Back in our days, we didn't have this subject in our curriculum, but after it was introduced, Sir became a specialist in that field. And so, dear participants, try to gather as much as information as you can from his knowledge-laden lecture. Thank you once again, and I welcome you once again. Thank you, everyone. Over the floor to Shyam.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. It is a most of extreme pleasure to welcome and introduce our honorable speaker of the day and my law college professor and my ML professor, Professor Dr. A. David Ambrose. So, sir's journey is one of the inspires one. Professor Dr. David Ambrose, sir, is a rare combination of academic, a well-known academic person, well-known research person, and able administrative personality. He is one of the few senior professors who had served in the university and more than 22 years of PG teaching. His area of specialization was widely include international law, constitutional law, environmental law, human rights, cyber law, and intellectual property rights, mainly science and technology, the new one. Sir is currently working on biotechnology and law. Sir is a policy level research based person. He has published nearly 70 articles both in international and national reputed journal, Impact Factor Journal, and he wrote 2 books. He has participated and presented more than 200 international seminars, and he is a resource person for all the seminars mostly. He successfully produced more than 30 PhD scholars, including High Court judges and judicial officers. Most of his PhD scholars are working as professors, associate professor, and assistant professors in various universities and law colleges and deemed universities. Sir advises both central and state governments. He was appointed by the Government of India as a member of Committee of Experts and Indian Maritime University. Appointed of Government of Tamil Nadu as a member of law in the Interdisciplinary Expert Committee and Production of Heritage Buildings. Appointed by the National Biodiversity Authority, Government of India as a member to the Expert Committee for framing guidelines for determining contribution and utilization National Biodiversity Fund. He got his doctorate of law from University of Madras. He secured first rank in ML University exams, and before joining Pondicherry Law College, he completed his degree. Previously, Sir finished BSc Zoology in Loyola College. Sir is one of the proud recipient of prestigious the Hague Doctoral Fellowship awarded by the Hague Committee of Academy of International Law, Netherlands. He was awarded full scholarship and 4 weeks advanced teacher training program organized by Cardiff University, UK. Sir is one of the person without the a marriage without complaint by the bridegroom. That is what in all the moot court competitions, Sir will be the chief judge in the finals. So once the students are facing our Ambrose sir, then one of the best person, they will become one of the best advocates in the world, because Sir will ask more questions, deeply in a research manner. So Sir is very famous for in the moot court judging. He is prestigious Philip Jessup moot court, Manfred Lectures, UNHCR, Afro-Africans, Commonwealth, and Stetson International level environmental moot courts. Sir presided all in the finals chief judge. Sir holds the life membership of institutions like Pondicherry Comparative Law Academy, Indian Society of International Law, and Indian Institute of Law, New Delhi. Sir is a life giver of many families. In that, my family is one of that. Sir taught me conscious law in Ambedkar Government Law College, Madras, and taught me international and conscious law in my ML department. Sir is served as a HOD when I studied my PhD in the department. Sir, I wholeheartedly welcome you for this on this occasion, because you are the one among us. Thank you, sir. Please, sir, the floor is yours.
Very good afternoon to one and all. Hope the sumptuous lunch will not stand in our way for a wonderful session on environmental law, understanding the nuances of teaching environmental law, one of the favorite subject. So I got interested in environmental law because when I finished my ML degree in 1988, because I stood first, I was awarded University Research Fellowship. So I had to choose a topic. So one of the topic was environmental law, because in 1988, environmental law was, that time only environmental law jurisprudence was picking up. So I had in my mind whether I should go for a definition of terrorism regarding all these things, or pollution in international law, definition of pollution and environmental related issues in international law. And later, going by the advice of my professor, I settled down for the my thesis that was with reference to international economic law, especially focusing on the trade and trade law, that is investment, foreign direct investment. So from 1986 onwards, I have been focusing on environmental law. In fact, I'm very proud to say my first article was in environmental law, which was published in way back in 1998 or 1990, the Yearbook of Legal Studies, definition of defining pollution perception in international law was one of my first article, which was published in the Yearbook of Legal Studies. And mine was one of only article from a research scholar. All other articles were from the learned Honorable High Court judges. And that is what I was the only student, because of my topic and my substance. It was published in the Yearbook of Legal Studies. From that day onwards, I have been continuously contributing in the Yearbook of Legal Studies. All the volumes have been till the latest one. My articles is there. So I am personally thankful to Madam Gauri. She has already told that she is my colleague. Yes, we had a wonderful time We worked as a family for upliftment of that institution, Madras Law College. Now I'm very happy that she's heading the institution where we worked, though it was segregated, bifurcated, shifted, whatever it is. Still, it is called Madras Law College as far as 5-year course is concerned. So where we work together, she's heading the institution, and I'm very happy to see the faculties also, the faculties for this FDP or the resource persons for this FDP also. My teachers are there, my contemporaries are there, my students or juniors are there. So 3 generations have been pulled in for this wonderful FDP. So Dr. Gandhi and others are my teachers, and my contemporaries are there. And also my juniors are there, my students, most of them, some 3 or 4 students are there, whatever it is. And I am also, I have been woken up by Madam Gauri from my slumberness. That is like a Kumbhakarnan. I was like in deep slumber. I was in hibernation. So she called me. I said, Madam, nowadays I'm not accepting anything except international law or constitutional law, which I don't want to go out of my comfort zone or whatever it is there. And no, she said she has awakened me from my slumberness, and like Kumbhakarnan, I was sleeping. So that is the, no, sir, you should come. She insisted, and that is why I am here. So next 45 minutes or so, I have structured my lecture in 3 parts, because you are all faculty members. I don't want to munch my words. I don't want to go into some details. So whatever I gained as a teacher for the last 22 years, starting my career in the Madras Law College in 1997 till 2020 June. So whatever I gathered as a teacher, because Madam was telling about our earlier days, though at that time we used to wear coat and all, only to hide, not to for the attire, that is not for the dress code, only to hide our shiverings, because I was asked to take first class in the jurisprudence in the 3-year course, and 300 students were there in the combined class in the north room or whatever it is. So in order to hide our foundation was weak. So then we pulled up our socks, and we gathered we developed our own methodology, and we were able to do it. So I'm just going to share from what my experience is, because my feeling is, without undergraduate teaching, you cannot come to postgraduate teaching. So directly, many people come to postgraduate teaching in universities. But however, I'm blessed that I took some classes I was working in 3 years. My initial days, my cradle was in the Government Law College. That is also where you can see all kinds of students from various segments of society, etc., etc. So I'm fortunate enough to have particular things and all these things. So with this few words, I will be moving on to, with your permission, let me share my PowerPoint with you. Yes. Hope it's visible to you.
Yes,
so
sir.
as I told you, I have structured.
Yes,
visible. Fine. As I told you, first part I will be dealing with some kind of a basic things of the reference to what you keep in mind while discussing on the legal education in the 21st era, especially 21st century, and especially during the COVID period. So all our earlier understanding of teaching pedagogy or whatever it is has become, we have to relook. We were compelled to go for a fresh look at the teaching pedagogy or whatever it is. So now initially 3 or 4 slides I'll be focusing on the initial methodology. Then I'll moving on to understanding the nature of environmental law. Then I will move on to the what are the teaching methodology we can employ for realizing the objectives of this particular course on environmental law. So my topic will be understanding the nuances of environmental law teaching. So Gauri Madam asked me to give it immediately. I said, Madam, now I become little, what is it? I'm not very quick. Give me some 2 hours or 3 hours. I took nearly half a day to select this particular topic because it should reflect what I'm going to speak. So that is what I think. So now, what is legal education? Because the seminar is the FTP is on legal education in whatever it is. So legal education, first of all, we should appreciate that education is that is today we have two kinds of education. That right to education. Education, we call it as a right to receive education under article that is on 21 as well as 19 or whatever it is. And similarly, a right to impart education has also been recognized under 19(1)(g) as well as article 26 and 31 of Indian Constitution. Right to impart education is there. Right to receive education is only up to the free education is only up to the age of 14 years. Whereas still the courts have recognized that we have a right to receive higher education also. But however, it is because it is based on the economic capacity of the state. That's what part 4 of the Indian Constitution says. So based on the economic capacity of the state in future, even the right to receive higher education may become a fundamental right under Article 21 of Indian Constitution or whatever it is. Today, amended Article 21A categorically states that we have a right to receive education up to the age of 14 years. The right to impart education is also a constitutionally guaranteed right. 19(1)(g) says that you can have your own profession, occupation, or whatever it is. And 25 says that you can establish under the right to freedom of religion. 25 and 26 it says that you can establish your own educational institution. And Article 30 subclass 1 clearly categorically states that every minority can have their own institutions of their choice. So with reference to 19(1)(g) as well as 25 and 26, whatever is, there can be some kind of limitations or their reasonable restrictions can be imposed. But with reference to 31, going by the various interpretation of the Supreme Court under Apex Court, there is no limitations on that particular thing. Even to right to receive education, there are two limitations. One already I mentioned, that is with reference to up to the age of 14 years, and it depends upon the economic capacity of the state or whatever it is, it may be. So now legal education is also similar to that. So whether it was a dichotomous approach until 1997. So whether we should treat this as a general course or we should treat it as a special or professional course. In the end, the scale tilted towards the second point, that it should be treated as a professional course. That is why 5-year course was introduced. And today, legal education is considered to be a professional course. Earlier, every citizen should know law. That is, every good citizen must know law. Law-abiding must become a law-abiding citizen. He should have a law degree, or he should know what is law. So ignorance of law is not excuse. That is also, it was earlier said. So that is why 40 years, 50 years they joined. After retirement they joined. Evening courses they had, all these things, except 1 or 2 places. Now evening courses are also abolished. So legal education in India, earlier it was considered as a general education as well as professional education. Now 70 or 80 up to 70 to 80%. Now it is predominantly considered as only a professional course, and we should have a professional approach for that, especially from the 5 years course point of view. BBL, LLB, BCom LLB, all the BSc LLB, all these things are to cater to the needs of the society. We have gone for so many classification of the LLB courses. Now, this is what worries me too much with reference to legal education, because I have been part of many of the committees, UGC committees, bar council committees, etc., etc. Too many cooks are there. Because the basic responsibility rests with the Bar Council of India, because they have to maintain the standard of the legal education. Therefore, they prescribe the syllabus, they prescribe the minimum qualification for the teacher appointment, they prescribe for minimum qualification for the professors, etc., all these things, and how a college should be, one minimum requirement for the college premises or infrastructure, all these things they prescribe. And then there comes the UGC. UGC also prescribes, if you want to become a teacher, you should have 55%, you should have a 2009, you should have completed your PhD. If you don't have a net or SLET, you should have completed your PhD under the 2009 rules, etc., etc. All these things they say. And the Madam Gauri was telling, this is affiliated to Ambedkar Law University. You have to go by the affiliating universities rules and regulations also. If you are in affiliated to the, you are a part of a private university, then also the problem is there. And government law college means there are so many problems are there. So there are too many cooks are there to prescribe the syllabus and whatever it is. Unlike the foreign countries, when you frame the syllabus, they'll say outcome of the syllabus. So outcome of the course. But we don't see that point, that is only cut and paste or things are there. Even now, with reference to 1 year LLM course, the objectives, because course objectives are not clearly enunciated. That is a problem we are facing. So many objectives are there, as I told you earlier. That is why law teaching has become challenging. So in teaching law college, government law college, they will say, I will come to that and I have a slide. Teaching in the government law college, it is easier, somewhat easier, because various reasons I will tell you later. But if you are in a private law college, when there is a strict competition and all these things, then the law teachers' perception becomes changed. There is a paradigm shift in the perception of a law teacher. So this is what I would like to share with you as the initial thing. So understanding the legal education, first of all, you should know the institution where you are working. And the second thing is you should appreciate the students. And third, only what kind of subjects we are going to deal with. So institution, we have 4 or 5 kinds of institution. So that is a law schools. There are about 17 to 18 law schools, national law schools are there. They follow the trimester system. Then we have private law colleges affiliated to a particular university, and we have university law colleges. We have private university law colleges and all these things. So that is what institution you should know. Where you are working, that you should keep in mind. The students what kind of students we are going to handle, all these things you have to keep in mind. So when I was a student, that time we were really student. So unlike yesteryears, so we were like students. So then the students become the consumer, because they said we are paying for it. Therefore, we are consumers. So the teachers must deliver the goods. So that is what they. So earlier, whenever the professor asked the student to come, they will come. So whatever the professor said, whatever they were dependent on the professor's notes, they were dependent on the professor's lecture, etc., etc. Later on, they demanded, we have become a consumer. You are a service provider. You have to provide your service. We are paying for our service or whatever it is. Then today in the 21st century, so they have become customers. So from student per se, they have become consumer. From consumer, they have moved to customer. So whenever they come, we have to take classes. Whatever the way they want to teach, we should teach. We have to respond to their stimuli. That's what. Earlier, we used to stimulate them to further studies. Now, it is ulta, what is happening. They are demanding, and according to their taste, according to their demand. So that is why we have to think. We have to take class. This is also, we have to keep it in mind. Third important thing is subjects. So when it comes to subjects, normally we classify law into 3 broad categories: public law, private law, and personal law. Which law you are going to teach? So this is what very important. Which subject is going to, whether the subject falls in, essentially squarely falls in the public law domain, or private law domain, or personal law domain, or sometimes it may also fall in 2 domains. So these are the things you have to keep in mind while developing a methodology or pedagogy or whatever it is, teaching methods, etc. All these things you have to keep in mind. So types of the courses also you should keep in mind. So types of the courses semester, now it's by and large, 90% of the law schools are following this semester system, and the law schools are following trimester system. In the trimester system, it is also that semester system, trimester systems, and we have CBCSE, pattern choice-based credit system, and sometimes we are expected to teach postgraduate students also, the LLM environmental, LLM environmental law and human rights, etc., etc. Or if you are even teaching LLM international, you have to necessarily teach LLM one paper on international environmental law, etc., etc. So the types of the courses which you are offering or which you are going to teach, also you should keep it in mind. Whether it is semester means accordingly, how many working days you will have, how many, it is 6 months, how many working days you will have, except the minus the exam hours. All these things you should be able to calculate, and accordingly you have to settle down for your methodology. Semester means little bit difficult, so that's why I said teaching in a government law college is little easier. and then the teaching in the government, in the law schools, or where you follow trimester or semester or whatever it is. So now the teaching is whatever it is. The teaching basically starts with managing classes. So when I started my teaching career, I was asked to manage class. So 50 minutes class, you manage for 40 minutes, 10 minutes attendance again. At the end, another 10 minutes. So 30 minutes, you just manage the class, keep them occupied. You need not teach them. That's what I told you. Teaching in government law in those days was easier. That is what I would like to share. So I was advised, you manage the class for 30 minutes. That is enough. 10 minutes attendance, 30 minutes class, then 30 minutes for the latecomers, another attendance. You take it in a lethargic, lengthy way, your attendance, then you find you are a good teacher. Everybody will appreciate. And because there is no feedback those days, only feedback is the students will follow you to the room to get your attendance or whatever it is, if they are latecomers or whatever it is. So managing class, then covering the syllabus. One thing is covering the syllabus. So a good teacher was able. So when I was in government law college teaching, how the first task was how to complete the syllabus jurisprudence in the given time, because so many strikes will be there, because the time the Tamil Eelam problem was there. Every alternate day some students will be on strike. So Mondays, Tuesdays, my classes will go. Then covering the syllabus was main problem for this, because then only when you cover the syllabus, then the students can score more than 60 plus marks. Otherwise, those days they will give 45 plus and give a pass. That was easier. So my task was, because my task was to first was all the students must take up the examinations. That was the first, because many of them will not take up the examination first attempt. They'll say, no, I'll take this because I have not prepared. So our first task was, we worked, as I told you earlier, 17 of us joined in the thing. Most of them we joined in the Madras Law College. We were about 6 or 7 people were there in Madras Law College. So we worked as a teacher unit with family, and they decided, so everybody must take up the classes, examinations, and they should pass. 80% should pass, and 50% should be above 50%. All these things we had in mind. So that is what covering is thing. So normally it is said, a good teacher covers the syllabus. So this is very much pertinent with reference to school teaching or bookish or theoretical part, whatever it is, covering the syllabus. So now the next one is a good teacher covers the syllabus, whereas an excellent teacher, I'm sorry, something is happening. An excellent teacher uncovers the subject. So covering the syllabus is different from
Sir, shall we share it, sir?
no problem. But will I be able to use my control? No.
No, sir, that cannot be done. But actually, your bandwidth is going low because you are sharing.
I know. That's the reason why I normally come in the afternoon. Yes. Okay, in that case, okay, fine.
Shyam.
Yes, ma'am.
Share பண்ணிடுப்பா.
No problem. It's come out.
Fifth slide.
I'll do it, ma'am. It's come.
பண்றாங்க sir.
Even mine has come.
Oh, sir, it's mine, sir.
நீங்க இன்ஸ்ட்ரக்ஷன் கொடுங்க சார், பண்ணிடுவாப்ல.
ஒண்ணு இல்ல நான் சொல்ல ஒரு கிளிக் அடிக்க வேண்டியதுதான்.
சரி.
ஓகே ஃபைன். சரி. ஒரு ஸ்லைட் போடணும். ஓகே.
சார் உங்களோட தான் சார் இருக்கு.
ஸ்லைட். என்னப்பா?
உங்களோட தான் இருக்கு.
அப்படியா?
ஆமா சார். வருங்க சார்.
முன்னாடி ஸ்லைடு. ரைட். Fine. a good teacher covers the syllabus, whereas an excellent teacher, uncovers the subject. So you should be able to understand your teaching. So my teaching, I know imposing teaching. So every teacher has to understand, like every student. Some student, they will remember in reading by once, twice, thrice. So when I was a student, I was able to understand that what is my capacity. After reading 3 or 4 times, I will remember 60% or up to 60% of what I have read. So first time reading, second time reading, third time reading. So understanding of my capacity, based on that, I used to go for my preparation for the examinations. Similar to that, I should understand my teaching also. So if you are full of information, then your teaching will be imposing teaching. That means before the student could understand one concept, could digest with one information, the other information will come like waves, one information after another information, so that the maximum information can be given in the appropriate time or given time. So that is what you should know. What type of teaching I'm following, whether it is imposing teaching or exploratory, like research methodology, whether I'm going to give notes, whether I'm going to make the student explain both in English and Tamil, what kind of students I'm having, all these things you should know. So you should have proper perception of your teaching. Otherwise, you should have understanding of your teaching. So that is very important. So now, objective of a course. This is very important. So now, after understanding your teaching, you should prepare like whether the research is doctrinal or non-doctrinal. Accordingly, you will select your methodology. Similar to that, so according to the course, you will have to select your whatever it is. So this is the general thing with reference to a legal process in a course, especially LLB and also a semester course. So my lecture will be focusing only on the LLB courses. That is now I come to know in the 4th year or the final year, it has been offered as a course subject. So a comprehensive legal process should be provide students with understanding of generally what we call as a legal literacy. So when we say a person who is coming out of the college is legally literate, there are 3 or 4 abilities he should have. So legal literacy depends upon 4 things. One is ability to understand that a person needs some legal inputs or legal information. The second thing is ability to locate that particular legal information, locate law. And third one is ability to evaluate all the information which he has got it. And lastly, use that particular law or apply that particular law. So a person who has this ability, or then we can call him as a legally literate person. So legal literacy depends on ability to know that I need some information, ability to locate law, ability to evaluate law, and ability to use law. So only when these 4 conditions are being given to the students, then we can say our courses are towards moving towards legal literacy or whatever it is. So in a legal process, a comprehensive course, whether it is environmental law, any 2 credit courses or 4 credit courses, 6 credit courses, you should have this in your mind. Process should provide the students with understanding of number one. What is it? Where the laws come from. So this is what first thing. Are the sources of law or historical background where the laws come from. And second, how they are implemented. So this is very important. And third one is the role of the judiciary, how they are interpreted. The last one is very, very important because today we don't have this. How lawyers influence these processes. The last part is nowadays I don't see in many of the courses because they are not creative. Their individuality is not being appreciated. So they are not be able to be creative. All these things is missing. So this is what a legal course aiming at providing a legal process must have these 4 combinations, four components where the laws come from, how they are implemented, how they are interpreted, how lawyers influence these processes. Going out of the law college, how this particular, that is why every now and then the Madurai bench of Madras High Court or Madras High Court, they recently also they said, lamented, the legal education in law colleges are very bad. So that is what they say. So the behavior is not there. The bar is intelligent, then the bench also will be intelligent, all these things. So the relation between bar and bench, it goes in hand with. So how the lawyers influence the processes? Because of the lawyers' influence only, we were able to get Jnani Balkiwala's influence only, we were able to get basic structure concept. So that is how we should be able to all these things. How lawyers can influence the process that is legal process. So this last part, we should be able to at least give some kind of weightage while preparing our methodology. So now, methodology. So not one, but combination of two or more. This is very important. So the earlier chalk and talk method, case study method, so then moot court method, all these things. So all discussion method, all these things were there. So that is why now you not one, but combination two or more method you should be. That's what I said today. It is demanding. Earlier, I will take a piece of chalk and go to the class with the duster already will be there. 2 pieces of chalk with the chalk. I'll go to the class. I won't carry anything, so I will write it in the board. Then I will explain one by one. Our case laws, I will explain all these things. So that is what talk and chalk method was very effective in those days because of my voice and because of our bad body language and because we never lost eye contact with everyone. We used to find out who is sleeping, who is not listening. So we used to walk from the we don't be sedentary in one place. We jump from the podium, go from walk here and there and find out so that the student hearing our voice and he will always be alert. So now not one but combination of two or more methodology you have to follow. Otherwise in today's language it should be interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary approach or whatever it is. It should be like that. Then the presentation must be powerful. Most of you I see the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint is now for pre-synopsis submission, post-synopsis submission, Viva, all these in the research they say, but they put it everything and just read it. So the presentation, it is not PowerPoint presentation, but without power. So this is what normally we find. Though it is called a PowerPoint presentation without power. So the presentation which you prepare, PowerPoint presentation, must be powerful. And I have seen many things. They put some audio, they put some video to make the student get interested, all these things. But that 20 to 30%, it should not cross the Lakshman Rekha. So whatever you put must be within the 20% limit, and other things must be information or whatever it is. So the presentation must be very powerful. Your PowerPoint presentation. And the thing is, depending on the law, so whether you are teaching public law, private law, or personal law, and depending on the subject, whether it is a core subject or an elective subject or whatever it is part of the only one part or entire part. All these things you should keep it in mind. So with this background, now we will go for this is the first part I have finished with reference to general understanding of teaching in the 21st century. What are the things we should keep in mind? So understand the nuances of environmental law teaching. Now we'll understand what is environmental law and what kind of methodology we should adopt for teaching effectively environmental law. Anybody can cook, but who is cooking tasty? That is what the $1 million question. It should be palatable. Anybody can teach any subject. I'm not challenging it. But effective teaching, successful teaching is different from effective teaching. And a good teacher is different from effective teacher. All these things we know because we are all grown-ups and we are in the business for last 5 years or 10 years. So we know what is what. So first thing, environmentalize of the development of environmental law as a separate branch of law is of recent origin. Only after based on the international developments, that is 1972 Stockholm Declaration. That is why once our environmentally blind Constitution was made environmentally sensitive in 1976 by the amendment, and we have 48A and 51A incorporated in our Constitution. The word environment found its due place only in the year 1976 after the 1972 Stockholm Declaration. We are proud of our constitution. We are proud of having a lengthiest constitution. But in spite of all these things, the word environment was not there in the original draft. Our constitution may be called as at that time environmentally blind, and it was made environmentally sensitive only in the year 1976. And especially with reference to the Stockholm Declaration 1972, that was a starting point. And also it may be public law. This is what where I have to explain to you. So the right to environment can be, generally speaking, the human rights or fundamental rights are classified into two categories. One is the individualistic oriented Western human rights. Another one is the society oriented communist, whatever or whatever it is, based on the welfare state concept. So there is a dichotomous approach with reference to human rights. That is why, though in 1948 we had only one UDHR, in 1966 we had to go for two covenants. International Covenant on political and civil rights and economic and social rights, all two covenants. So now the dichotomous approach is with reference to one according to one theory. Both the theories focus on development. According to one theory, develop the individual by conferring certain civil and political rights. In turn, the society will develop because the individual is being the unit of the society. The ulta is set by the society-oriented human rights. Develop the society by guaranteeing socio-economic rights. In turn, the individual who is also part of the unit of the society will develop. So that is why we say individualistic oriented and society oriented. So in this fashion only we classify them into civil and political rights. In this fashion only we classify them into economic and social rights. Dichotomous approaches there. Very few rights can find themselves in both the groups. So either it can be whether economic and social rights under that category or on the category of civil and political rights. Very few rights. For example, the right to one is right to information. I need right to information for my personal development as well as for effective functioning of democracy. So I should know for whom I'm selecting. So the background of the candidate I should know. For effective functioning of democracy, you need right to information, or that is freedom of speech and expression can be accommodated in both categories. So either it is a civil and political, as a civil and political rights, as well as economic and social rights. Similarly, the right to environment also can be accommodated in both groups, civil and political rights and economic social rights. As an individual, or as an individual's right to life, I need clean water. I need clean air to breathe, etc., etc. At the same time, you also need clean environment. That is what for example, the atmosphere, all these things, right to environment for the whatever. That is what Madam Indira Gandhi, before 1972, she said, how can we think of pollution in the oceans when masses of our populations are living in the slums with the no proper sewage, etc., etc. So in 1972, when she took part, after 1972, she took a nosedive and said, oh, right, environment has to be protected. Even it is found in our ancient literatures. Our Vedas also recognize the importance of environment. So this is what this will the one thing. Environment can be accommodated in the economic and social rights as well as civil and political rights. I'm just giving you an analogy. Similar to that, the environmental law can be a public law because it is a fundamental right that is constitutionally recognized rights. I'll explain it later. And it is also what you call private law. So it is also a private law affecting private persons, between two persons, polluter and all these things, polluter and the victim, or etc., etc. So it is a public law. So environmental law can be studied as a public law. Environmental law can also be studied as a public law. So this is one thing you should remember. Second important thing is with reference to the nature of environmental law. So this is what you should know. First one is it is constantly evolving. So this is what you should appreciate. Constantly evolving. What is yesterday, today? The area which constantly evolving today, I can cite very much is climate change. So the climate change regime. Yesterday, that is what global warming regime. whatever is evolving with reference to energy also. So earlier we had for reduction of CO2 emission. So earlier we were using that yellow bulb. Then we went for the CFTs. Then now we are having LED bulbs. So last year also, a couple of years back, a Nobel Prize was given to inventor of the LED bulbs only for energy conservation. So all our ACs, 2-star, 5-star, all these are energy conservation, because we are reducing, we are attempting or aiming at reduction of the carbon emission, CO2 emission, so that there will not be global warming, etc. policies, whatever it is, linked with the economic aspects or trade aspects. So constantly they evolve. So this is one thing. The second thing is through complex interaction. This is very important, not simple interaction. So the nature of nature of environment law constantly evolve through the complex interaction of legislation and notification, various legislation. We have about 20-25 legislations in India, and also administrative rule making. This is what the rules, notifications and rules, etc. Thirdly, judicial interpretation. So the combination or interaction of the legislation and administrative rule making, or legislation and judicial interpretation, it constantly evolving. So that is what the judiciary once said. Right to environment is a fundamental right under Article 21 of Indian Constitution. Right to life also, because of the judicial interpretation, it become fundamental rights. Because of the judicial observation that the sustainable development is a customary law, therefore it can be applied, enforced within the municipal sphere. Then sustainable development become part of our municipal law. So it is constantly evolving through complex interaction of legislations. Legislation for notification, legislation, we are about 15 notification, I'll come to that later, and administrative rule making and judicial interpretation. So this is what you should appreciate. Then, and what is the nature? Because we know the nature of Indian Constitution, we can say it is lengthy as a constitution, it is rigid, it is federal in nature, like that. The nature of environmental law, first we say this, then we see it is doctrine, theory, and also practice. So this is what the nature of, we have to, if you are going to teach environmental law, you should appreciate this is what cumulatively you have to teach, take into consideration all these things. So you may ask me, what is the doctrines, sir? What is the theory, sir? What is the practice, sir? You may ask. Practice, there is no thing. How the law is implemented. Theory is whatever it is. What is it? The doctrines normally we say is with reference to is we say polluter pays principle. The public trust doctrine, all common law doctrines, we may say polluter pays principle, the public trust doctrine. These doctrines are involved here. And with reference to theories, what are the theories? We say fault theory, we say absolute liability, we say strict liability. Therefore, why we should pay the polluter pays principle involves the first one is damages. Second one is whatever, sometimes it may be triple damages, for damages caused to the environment, damages caused to the persons, and also the actual money involved, actual cost that will be incurred for setting the clock back, for setting the environmental degradation, that also cost will be included. So sometimes it goes up to 5 crores for whatever it is, the polluter pays principle. So the victims will be paid as a compensation, damages to the environmental will be paid, and the amount for rectification of the environmental degradation also will be charged. So this is what we should know, the doctrines, basic doctrines with reference to environmental law, basic theories with the environmental law, and how these doctrines and theories have been put into practice via what you call legislation, statutory provisions, notification, rule making, administrative rule making, and also with reference to judicial interpretation, etc., etc. And lastly, you should also appreciate that environmental law is common law principle, and now it has become it has got statutory recognition. So common law principles, finding the due place in these statutory principles that is also you should appreciate. That's why I said with reference to now today we are talking about in the 2G cases as well as in the Colgate case, when the coal was, how the coal tender should be awarded, all these things we say. So public trust doctrine was invoked. So then parent patria principles were sometimes invoked, and all these things are common law principles are invoked. 16th century principles have been invoked with reference to settling down, and that is what, to some extent, sustainable development principle also is being used. I can give you an example with reference to common law principle getting statutory recognition. That is IPR. The excellent example is IPR. So what is IPR? Basically, I am the inventor, so I should be benefited by my invention, and some other person should not use it. So that is why we have given patent recognition, etc., etc. So common law principles getting statutory recognition. So this is a combination or mixture of common law and statutory law as far as environmental law is concerned. So this is the point you should keep it in mind. So now how to study the whatever it is. This is very important. This is the most recent one, because after analyzing, this is with reference to last 3 days, I have been making some readings on how in various law schools or on in UK and also in USA, and also sometimes in the and also third world countries, environmental law is taught. In most of the European and in the developed countries, environmental law is taught as a elective course, not as a course. Whereas in India, we are doing it as an elective course. That is what, especially in the final semester, if I remember rightly, because that is what after in the third year, it is in the 6th semester, I believe. In the final year, in the 5-year course, again it is in the 10th semester, or I do not know, whatever it is. So this is what multi-centric. So this is what you should keep in mind. Environmental decisions are not made by single institution. So legislature is there, administrative decision making is there, judicial decisions are there. So multi-centric. So the decisions come out. That is what you should know, the sources of law or whatever it is, the origin of that particular subject. You remember the earlier slide which I said. So environmental decisions are made by not by single institution. And the second thing is it is pluralistic. That is multiple stakeholders, different sectors of life, society. So multiple stakeholders. As a citizen, I have a right to environment. So as a company, running a company, as a trade, as a factory, I should keep it in mind certain things. So as a company director, I have certain responsibilities. So the earlier only the supervisor was made accountable, but under the provisions of the Environmental Protection Act, even the director was made responsible for any environmental pollution or water degradation or whatever. So the multiple stakeholders are there, individuals, society, and the society means sectors, that is there. For example, if it is with reference to tannery sector is there. If it is with reference to the various other sectors also, with different sectors of the society, multiple stakeholders are there. For example, if you are constructing a dam, if you are going for a power plant, there will be development. Whether the development must be at the cost of environment or whatever it is. That is what sustainable development normally we speak about. So this is what. So multi-centric and pluralistic approach has to be because the environmental law is basically the nature of environmental law is multi-centric and pluralistic. That is what you should keep in mind while preparing your methodology. So this is what you should know. So now environmental management. So this is what you should appreciate, compartment-wise analysis of environmental management. Today we don't say environmental jurisprudence. Earlier we used to say human rights jurisprudence, environmental law jurisprudence, etc. Because now they have become the governing law of the nation, governing law of the state. So every law must accommodate human rights concerns. Similarly, every law now, developmental law, for example, for that reason, any developmental law must accommodate environmental concerns. So that is why normally we don't say environmental jurisprudence, but we go for a general term, a holistic view. We go for a holistic view, and that is why we use the word environmental management. So the environmental management, first one is what normally we say is policy. So the policy is the policy is nothing but any social awakening or any social happening that compels lawmaking. That is what policy. So technically, I'm telling you. So what is a policy? Any social awakening, any social happening that compels lawmaking is called a policy. So because of Sarika's death, that we went for Anti-Eve Teasing Act. Because of Navar's death, that was a social happening. We went for so many things. So because of so many things, so the law comes to yesterday also some ATM things are there. So that is a social happening. Society will do something. So in order to plug that loophole, we'll always go for whatever thing development in the society. So that is why normally we say earlier we used to say sociological school of jurisprudence. Today we talk about sociology of law. So what is the difference? Sociological school of jurisprudence, according to Roscoe Pound others, what is the thing? Law regulates the activities of the society. That's what. Very simple. Law is social tool of social engineering. Lawyers are social engineers. So law regulates the activities of the society. Now the ulta is taking place. Every development that takes place in the society now warrants or necessitates, requires a legal response. So because of the defections, we went for anti-defection law. So any development, economic, social, cultural, scientific, any development, because of the development of IT, we have IT Act. Because of the development of biotechnology, we have Biotechnology Act. Because of nanotechnology, we have regulations for nanotechnology. Because we are having today artificial intelligence, and because of that, we are having regulations with reference to artificial intelligence. So when a new development comes, any unbridled, any unchecked, any development that takes place in the society paves way for chaos in the society. Therefore, when a new development comes, normally the lawmaker will have a dilemma. That is what normally we call it as a lawmaker's dilemma. That is why Madras University is very good at policy level research. So that is why I'm just enlightening you. So we'll have a dilemma whether we should go for a prohibitive regime, stop it, or we have to go for a regulatory regime. So by and large, 99% we'll go for a secondary thing, that is the later one, regulatory regime. We will not say stop, no research. We will not, because we don't want to commit a mistake like what happened in the days of Galileo. Because when Galileo said world is not flat, it is globe in nature, he was mocked at and he was treated as a madman. We don't want to commit. So we go for a wait and watch of that principle. So this is what a social, now any development that needs a legal response. So that is that development is called a policy. So this policy has to be necessarily converted into a law. So this is what. So scientifically it has to be, when you are converting it a law, so you have to keep certain things in your mind. What are the institutions you have to bring? What institution? For example, in environmental law, we have State Pollution Control Board, Central Pollution Control Board. In Human Rights Protection Act, we have National Human Rights Commission, State Human Rights Commission, courts, etc. Certain institutions. What should be the theoretical basis for that? So all these things will say law. So a policy, if it has to be realized, it can be realized only through a well-drafted law, legislation. So now the third important the segment of the environmental management is implementation. So this part is what practical point. So this is what I said, theoretical doctrine, theory, and also practice. Implementation, how the pollution laws are implemented, how the environmental related laws are implemented in toto, earnestly, effectively, etc., etc. is $1 million question. So that is what. So what is the role of whether the State Pollution Control Board is discharging its function as per the law, as per the rules, procedures, the legislation, notification, rules, etc., etc. Whether they are doing the executive part, that is administrative work, for implementation of the legal provisions, legislations, notifications, statutory provisions, etc., etc. So environmental management. So you should keep it in mind. Policy. So for the policy, you should necessarily refer to the historical background, the reason behind the particular legislation and the law, how the law has been made, what are that is analytical approach you have to employ. Then implementation, necessarily it should be empirical in nature. So this is what you should keep in mind. So now the policy perceptions, because you may not know, most of the textbooks do not have it. So the policy perceptions, how the paradigm shift in the policy perceptions of Indian government, I will very briefly say. So before, this is what the first one, before 1990s, that is before 1970, the 1980s. So this was the position. So environment versus development. So the earlier development means only they asserted all the new newly independent Afro-Asian countries asserted that they have a right to development. So the right development means that those time it was economic development, industrial development, not overall development. So that word development simply meant industrial development or economic development. That is the reason in 1972 onwards we had the new international economic new policy, NEO, and also Charter of Economic Rights and Duties, etc., etc. All these things because they wanted, we also want to become like the Western world. Now we are least developed countries. We want to develop because those days developing countries, developed countries, least developing countries, third world countries are called as least developing countries. So they asserted development. So when 1972, the Western countries, highly developed countries said, oh, now we are woken up. Our eyes are open. So now we should not go for development at the cost of environment. When they said so, the third world countries opposed it. All newly independent countries opposed it, or the least developing countries opposed it because that time. So now the policy prescription was dominated by these kind of international negotiations, dialogue or whatever it is. Till 1990s, our Indian position was this. Accommodative or constitutional, that is what 1976 amendment, 48A and 51A, and international principles. So that is most of the legislations or whatever happened in 1972, 82, 92, 2002, or 92 till 92, we were able to make legislations keeping them including the 1986 Environmental Protection Act. So now after 19 things, that is what 1990s. So they understood environment development go hand in hand with. So they are inseparable adjuncts. So you cannot have the cake as well as eat it or whatever it is. This is what the problem is. So they realized, and that is after 90s only, 1986 onwards. So we were going for adaptation of sustainable development principles. So this is what. So now what happens is after 1990s. So it is what management of natural resources. It was not pollution. It was not the things accommodative of constitutional and international principles. It was with reference to management of natural resources, exploitation of over-exploitation of natural resources, results in a degradation of environment. So this is what they said. Over extraction of water, underground water will deplete the conditions or whatever it is. So exploitation, so that over exploitation, so sustainable yield, maximum optimum sustainable yield, maximum sustainable yield, all these principles. So they said management of natural resources. Then because of that, economic efficiency, social justice, that was the role of judiciary, so the sustainable development principle, public trust principle, all these things were brought in. Public trust doctrine was brought in because of natural resources. They said natural resources are owned by the ownership and also sovereignty. So who is the owner? Who is the sovereignty? Who is owning the sovereign? So this was who is the owner of natural resources? Who has a sovereign authority over the natural resources? All these principles were brought in. So this is what the policy perception with reference to these things. So now again the policy perception after 2000 is changed. So new environmental policy 2006, the 11th National Plan 2007 to 2006, high growth targets, especially there is an insist on endeavoring that high growth targets to provide access to basic facilities such as health, education, clean drinking water, etc. So that is why I wrote an article with reference to realization of social justice through environmental legislation. So clean drinking water it's a duty of the state to provide it. So now we have to get it under Article 21 as a fundamental right. So using environment, clean air, whatever it is. So social justice has been realized through the environmental legislation, starting from the V.R. Krishna Ayer's famous judgment or whatever it is. So now the second thing is identifies protection of environment as one of the 7 major challenges faced by India. So this is what. then offers market mechanism for better environmental management. That is what linking economic incentives, economic instruments with reference to environmental protection. So that is why eco-labeling was there. So they wanted to give some subsidiaries for environmentally friendly products, etc., etc. Market mechanism for better environmental management, because sustainable development stands on three pillars. One is environment, another one is human rights, and third pillar is economic, that is financial. So yeah, sustainable development stands on three pillars, and that is what sustainable development, economic development for that reason, all these things. So that is why human rights, environmental law, and economic principles. So that is what very important. So now the key policies. So this is what the National Forest Policy 1988, I'm sorry, Policy Statement Abatement of Pollution 1992, National Conservation Strategy Policy Statement of Environment and Development, Policy Statement Abatement of Pollution 1992, then in National Environment Policy, already I mentioned about it. So now Agriculture Policy 2000, National Population Policy 2000, National Water Policy 2002, and we are having 2012 policies also there, and also with reference to the climate change and other things also there. Now, if you want to study environmental law, because we have about 30 legislation, constitutional provisions are there. Then we have Chapter 14, Pre-Independence Act, so that starting from the Arbor Act, so 1976 Act, and our criminal law also has environmental pollution related thing. Chapter 14, Public Nuisance. You should not poison the lake or whatever it is. So there are so many things. What is the methodology I should apply? How we should study? So basically, you should classify the entire environmental law into 5 or 6 categories as follows. One is general laws. The second one is pollution control laws. Third one is natural resources management law, because there is a paradigm shift in the policy approach. And then health, sanitary, hygiene, and safety measures laws. And then overarching law. Then lastly, we have environmental justice law. Today we are talking about environmental justice. Today we are talking about climate justice, climate litigations, etc., etc. All these things are there. So if you understand, analyze the environment, the entire environmental legislations under these 6 headings, then it will be easier for you to prepare your methodology, understand your and accordingly understand the subject, and accordingly plan your methodology. Now I will give you an example of whatever it is. Environmental legislations, general laws, constitutional law, common law, and criminal law, pollution control laws, water laws and air laws, etc. I'm not giving the entire thing, forest act, everything. Just I'm giving you glimpses of things. Natural resources laws, land laws, revenue acquisition reform, irrigation, fisheries, mines, minerals, forests, wildlife diversity, plant varieties, geographical indication, all these things come under natural resources management laws. Then we have, as I told you earlier, health, sanitation, hygiene, safety laws, factories, industrial, the health measures in Factories Act, industrial establishment, healthcare services, food adulteration, drugs, Consumer Protection Act, etc., etc. Today in the COVID situation also we are talking about right to health, right to health, to have a right to health. So we have so what we say is right to life includes right to life. Right to life includes right to health. Right to health includes right to health care. Right to health care includes right to access to life-saving drugs. Right to access to life-saving drugs includes right to access to life-saving drugs at an affordable price. That is why Drugs and Consumer Protection Act. So right to health includes right to access to life-saving drugs at an affordable price. So that is what the elasticity. So that is what we should appreciate now. So now overarching on environmental protection and rules and notification. That is what we say Omnibus Act, Umbrella Act, so many things, 1987 Act. So the one act which we have this thing. Similarly, we have Biodiversity Act and also all this latest edition is Biodiversity Act, and also talks about biological resources, all these things. So this Environmental Justice Laws, Green Tribunal Act, and also earlier the 1997 Act, so many things. I'm just giving you there are about 25, 30 acts there. So due to past year, the time I'm doing this. So we have about 50 notifications. So this is what normally we say. The second one is very important with reference to GMOs, genetically modified organisms. That is the only thing which we, the definition of GMOs or genetic engineering is borrowed from the OECD the things of late. Our present the finance minister refers to Organization of the Economic and Cooperation, whatever OECD, whatever it is. Then Coastal Zone Management Notification. So you should not, whatever it is, Biomedical Waste Management Act, and also the plastic thing, all these things. Recycled plastic manufacture rules. So the rules, notifications, administrative, all these things are coming under nearly 15 or so. I am just giving you the essential, most directly appropriate relevant notification. So you should know all these things. That is what the environmental law is all about. So general laws, pollution laws, and also the what do you call the natural resources things, natural resources management laws, health laws, then overarching law and justice act. So this is the justice laws, green justice or what green justice, environment, American environmental justice is different from other environmental justice. We should appreciate all these things. So now, role of judiciary, whatever it is. So that is what you should know. Right to environment, they said already I made it. So sustainable development made as a customary law, precautionary principle, polluter pays principle, right to compensation. This is a very important thing. Right to compensation under Article 32 of Indian Constitution. So polluter pays principle, compensation to the victims. That's what I said. All these things. Role of the judiciary. Number of cases starting from Ratlam municipality case up to the latest. Every year we are having it. Now we have NGT also. National Green Tribunals also. That I'm not going to. I am not going into that because that jurisprudence is very. It's itself is we can have a discussion on that one topic on that. But nevertheless, right to compensation has become a right, not only judicially recognized right, and also it's a writ under the writ jurisdiction. That equitable remedy. That's what. That's what I said. Common law principle. Common law equitable. When you say compensation under Article 32, that is equitable remedy. So that is what writ jurisdiction. So sometimes the polluter pays principle, polluter pay means that is the statutory principle. So common law as well as statutory principle. So now, if you have to understand international also, because as I told you in the first thing, most of our jurisprudence, environmental jurisprudence is based on international developments. So that is what wonderful picture of Peace Palace. So I was there for 2 months. So this is what wonderful place. So I had an opportunity of seeing the full court, ICJ, 13 judges, full bench in the Bosnia-Herzegovina's interim measures. So 2 months I was here. I was walking through these things. So that is why for international, I thought you can have a look of the Peace Palace, whatever it is, very serene place, very things. Inside you will have only one coffee vending machine or tea vending machine or whatever it is. So this is what those days. I'm talking about 1992 or 90. So that is what you should know. So now, traditional international only state responsibility concerned with the what is Lake Lennox principle, Sikatero Duan non-Lawless principle. Then arbitration, several arbitrations on Lake Lennox arbitration, Melter arbitration, and also we have Carrefour Channel principle, etc., etc. So state under the state's responsibility only a tradition to address the issue of environment pollution. Then we have various declarations, multilateral environmental agreements, and the United Nations Environmental Program. Right to development was a right to already I discussed about it. Then trade and environment under WTO thing, all these things. Then law of the sea and marine pollution, and also pollution at the ICs as well as pollution at the atmosphere. Then in international humanitarian law, this also is coming up newly. Armed conflicts. Now Syria using of chemical weapons and the protection of environment, especially foliage they call it. So during the Vietnam War, the Americans used the orange gas. So what happens is thick forest will be there. Then the leaves will fall down. So they can bomb from they can go for aerial bombing. They can have vision, groups, because under the dense forest, they had a cover like our Veerappan or whatever it is. So they had the orange bombs, etc., all these things, chemical weapons, foliage, all these things, protection of environmental during these things. That is also there. And lastly, we have climate change today. New scientific data what glaciers are melting. So we have a freak weather, we have Vepasalanam, and because of that, we are having rains, all these things, we are getting all these things. Now, I'm moving to my last segment of my thing. I'll take another 5 or 10 minutes. The objectives. So we know generally what is legal education, what is the role of a teacher. Then we know if I am given environmental law, I should understand the subject. Accordingly, I should orient. I should go for my teaching orientation. How I should have a mental calculation. So what are the objectives of teaching, whatever it is. So whether this is what you should always keep in your mind. So when I go for a class in PG, especially ML, so I'll think what is whether he can take up this as a dissertation, whether there will be a question, definitely a question in the whether that is area is a potential from the examination point of all these things I'll keep in mind. So sometimes I'll take one thing for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, all these things my students know about this. So whether the course seeks to teach overall content of environmental law, what I said, common law principle, theories, all these things, whether overall content of environment, that means you just have a touch of everything. So that is what. So you have a buffet. So you have touch 111. You start with the 111. Each one piece you add all that. Then your tummy is full. So like that, you touch upon one principle, polluter pays principle, role of judiciary, legislation, common law principle, the doctrines, etc. Then one semester is gone. So whether your course is designed or seeks to teach the overall content of environmental law as a substantive discipline. Number 2, whether the aim is to teach statutory and regulatory analysis. So environmental law principles are there. So they prescribe certain regulations, environmental regulations. So that is what, when the environmental regulations are violated, then polluter pays principle comes. So what in international law, what we say is state responsibility entails any breach of international obligation. Similar to that, if there is a breach of an environment, a statutory provision relating to environment, then the whatever it is, then the punishment part or the polluter pays principle part comes, or whatever it is, precautionary principle part comes. All these things we have to take care of it under these things. Whether you have to follow EAA, environmental impact assessment, whether you should go for public hearing, all this, the aim is statutory and regulatory analysis. This is very important from the NGO's point of view as well as practical point of view. So this is what. So if I am going to advise a NGO, otherwise I'm going to an activist lawyer, then I should know what is the importance of environmental impact assessment. What is the difference between environmental impact assessment and precautionary principle? What is public hearing? So nowadays public hearing has become mockery, that is fraud on the legislation. So that is all these things. So only in the paper they say, they manipulate it. So how it is being done? So what should be a public interest litigation should be filed. So I am an environmental activist, environmental lawyer. I want to advise environmental NGO. So that is what. Whether the aim is to teach statutory and regulatory analysis. And thirdly, whether the aim includes use of administrative law, policy materials, scientific and economic methodology, understanding cases in the context of statutory interpretation. So that is, take a case law, for example, whatever it is. So what the NGT has said. So this is what you should appreciate. So scientific and economic thing. So in the precautionary principle, there is one important thing. So very important. So the lack of scientific data will not be used as a defense for not following precautionary principle. So I don't have capacity, I don't have scientific data, therefore I'm not following, I'm not employing the precautionary principle. You cannot plead that way, because sometimes we say it is absolute liability. There is no differences. So this is what. So I hope you know the difference between strict liability and absolute liability. So in absolute liability, we don't have any differences like contributing negligence, act of God, etc., etc. So that is what you should know. Whether a single course should aim to teach substantive principle as well as practical skill. This is the $1 million question. This is very much with reference to trimester. We can say about it. If you are in a semester, whether I should tell them all the laws and also the practical aspects, or only theory and also the various what you call doctrines and theories. interpretation of judiciary, fine, not the practical aspects. This is what now with reference to all in Tamil Nadu as well as in law schools, private and all these things. Whether this environmental law syllabus is to the single course as a core course aim to teach the substantive principles as well as practical, that means statutory, regulatory principles, etc., etc. I don't think the second part. So these are two sides of the same coin. If you are not going to have one side is blank, then the coin is not valid. So your course is not valid. So keeping that in mind, you should be able to develop your pedagogy or your methodology. Now, what is a methodology? So this is what fundamental to a discussion of teaching methods for environmental and understanding varied goals. For environment, for constitutional law, that normally we say constitutional principles we teach, fine. But anyway, you should appreciate Constitution is a legal document, written document, basic document, and it's also political legal document. So many people do not know that. So that is what is secularism. Sometimes we do not know and understand. So secularism is coming out of a constitution, constitutional rights, fundamental rights. All these things we teach. So that is easier. But this is varied goals. That is why I put it in a different things. So I as a teacher of environmental law, I have different goals in my mind. So this is what you should appreciate. Traditional method, chalk and talk, board method, discussion method, using whatever it is. This is what. The second thing is very important, case study method. So this is what. So normally we do it with a tannery case, Vellore Citizen Forum's case. So what is that? Then what has happened to this in the Coam River? All these things, some case study method. So that is what you have to go to the field and use for that. Then we have, this is very important, environmental clinical course. So this is very important. So one person can act as a judiciary, one person act as an NGO, one person, that is what clinical courses. Or you can have a moot court in your class itself based on the environmental law problem, upcoming problem, all are already decided problem. So that is various stakeholders. You are a citizen, you are an NGO, you are a factory owner, you are the government, you are the judiciary. So 5 stakeholders are there. So that is why they allot the class, divide the class, give 2 or 3 problems, ask them to do it. This is if it is a semester system, first part you should devote for the substantial principles, and second part you have to devote for skill development, practical development. What is skill? That is what knowing that I can do something. The confidence level is something like skill development is always necessary. So place greater emphasis on the teaching of practical skills in an environmental law context, not simply the concepts, etc., etc. Maybe for one half of the semester, first half of the semester you can concentrate on this, but second half necessarily you should go for a combination of things, that is case study method or clinical method. You should employ this particular thing. So now responsibility, institutional responsibility, to which institution you are attached. So this is what very important, government law college, law school, private law college, private university law college. So institutional responsibility. So based on your contribution for environmental law, so the institutional responsibility, that is first thing. Then intellectual responsibility. As I told you earlier, it is constantly evolving. So you should keep abreast of the latest developments. Intellectual responsibility. So research, you should always be reading some new developments, articles, etc. What is happening in climate change, all these things, what is happening in and around with reference to COVID, also environmental health issues, all these things, Doga Declaration, what you should be reading newspapers, what happens to the BT cotton and also BT brinjal, all these socio-economic policies, socio-economic human rights issues, drinking water things, what the MNCs are sucking the groundwater, indiscriminate exploitation of natural resources, and also the quarry mines and sand quarry, all these things you should be intellectual responsibility. What will be the extent of damage to the environment, and in turn, how it will affect our human survival. And lastly, individual responsibility. you cater to the needs of the individual students. That is a group which has been given to you. So in a given class, somebody will be very studious. So normally I tell all my students, I mean, all my persons belonging to my teaching fraternity, 20% of the students, they don't need your advice at all. They are very talented. So they don't need your class. Their father, they are well off. They have photogenic memory. They can read the textbooks in no time. You have to read 4 or 5 times to understand a concept. They will read it and understand. They will teach you, etc. That is what two-way traffic. And 20% of the students, you can't do anything. You can't do anything. They will be daydreaming. They will be thinking about something. No, but we are concentrating on the rest of the 60%. Cat on the wall situation. So this is what individual responsibility. So what you have to see is how to make 40% to 60%. It's very difficult to make 80% to 100%. We may say, 20 marks, but it is easier to make 40 to 70, 30 marks. So normally we focus on this individual ability. So we say 80 can become 90, but whereas 40 can become 70. So 30%, that is what. So normally that 80 boy can become 90. That is also because he will say, madam, help me, sir, help me. That is why I scaled in URX. But he will be holding he will be our torch bearer, no problem. But this lot, 60% lot. So if you help them, they pass out and it will be a great contribution for the society. So that is what individual responsibility towards the students. This is also what we have to keep it. So Ambrose has done his marathon. Thank you. Fine. I finished it well in time.
Sir, thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. Because your exemplary talk today, you covered all the things. The teacher, what should do, what are all should not do in your topic, as well as the individual responsibility of everyone. Thank you, sir. Shall we go for the question and session? There are 4 questions there, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I will start. We could stop the sharing, no?
Yes, sir. Please, sir.
Stop sharing.
Sir,
the question thing.
Yes, sir. Our DLS sir is joined. Professor sir.
Okay. My good friend and my classmate. Fine. Yes. All right. Where is it? Chat.
Video, sir.
Sir, enforcing environmental club in a law college with the help of government. Your suggestions are yes, fine. Environmental club you can have like our Red Ribbon Club, NSS, all these things. Now we are also consumer club is there. So nowhere sooner or there the Supreme Court has said you should include it as a syllabus in the school itself. And why not? So even in a government college you can have what nobody is going to say no. Nobody is going to. Only thing is you should have a proper person as heading the club. That is what more important. So that is what you find a environmental law teacher and also the principal as the patron and all these things. Make the director of legal studies as the whatever patron, chairman, all these things. Then nobody is going to question you. So whatever you get we did it also in the thing with the permission of the government. We will do it. We are not going to do anything against the government because society at large is the beneficiary and the parent patria principles will be applicable. No problem. Any other case? Okay.
Yes, sir. The thing is, we are in our Pudupakam Government Law College. We are having already a climate action emergency club is there, sir. Last year we inaugurated. We are working on it, sir. Thanks. For the next question is, Professor, in a space exploration and exploitation, now the Western and European nations are debating on production of space environment. How, as a teacher, one can approach it in environmental perspective. Apart from space debris, what else can be analyzed? From Dr. E. Prema Vitsal.
3 important things you should know. One is safety of the astronauts. So this is what the earlier things. Safety of the astronauts. Second thing is when the spacecrafts, whatever it is, they are met with an accident. So we call it as a debris. And suddenly it will come. That is why Skylark earlier we said it fell in Australia and they paid compensation, etc., etc. So it is something like that. What we e-waste, still e-waste. I have about 5 or 6 cell phones at my home. So every time I have a wire and whatever it is, we do not know what to do. So only now interested countries are there. 7 interested countries are there. then we'll say one by one. So that is what Professor Bincheng said, instant customary international law, with reference to 1967 General Assembly resolution on use of outer space for peaceful purposes. He said only 2 countries, USA and then USSR, they were the sponsors and supporter of the things. And that time these 2 countries had the capabilities, whatever it is. So he said that General Assembly resolution, even though it has only a persuasive effect, it is only a discussion, but nevertheless, because it was supported by the 2 interested countries, it became customary, instant customary international law. Now about 14 states are there with that capability of launching satellites. And now we are going for, the Skylark is going for next month or so. They have said some 5 or 6 people are going to moon or whatever it is, all these things. So that time commercial things, especially international law with reference to state responsibility, state liability will come in. So you have to prove that even with reference to China, we are talking about that. So whether the virus is man-made or natural, whether the outbreak was intentional or accidental. So these are the issues we are facing with reference to COVID also. If you are going to drag China into the courts, then you have to satisfy this. There is an international obligation is there. It is breached. Therefore, China is having international responsibility to whatever it is. So similar to that. So Skylark, the space whatever company, if it is a commercial thing, they have booked it in America. So then registered in America. Then that is what I'm just being an international law student. I'm just enlightening you. Kindly refer to the para 3 of Stark's definition of international law. So any non-state entities whose action or whose activities become the concern of international community, they will become the subject of international law. So now, if these commercial space companies' activities become the concern of international community, definitely they will become subject of international law. They definitely state responsibility can be fixed against them, either through their host state or using the principle that is the injured person, that is nationality principle, or with reference to universal principle also, the responsibility can be fixed. Fine. Because it was more of international laws involved rather than environmental law. So that is why I had to give you a lengthy answer to that, touching upon international environmental law. Sorry, international law, state responsibility.
Okay, sir. Next question is Ananya Chatterjee from Ananya Chatterjee. Being a multidisciplinary topic, what could be probable components of a course on computational sustainability? Are there sustainable strategies pertinent to management of transboundary environmental issues under conflict and power asymmetry conditions?
Sustainable development is territorial or extraterritorial? First tell me that. Because you are using the word transboundary.
Yes, this is the
sustainable. India has to follow sustainable development principle. That means all our developmental goals must satisfy environmental concerns. So at international level, we don't think that this principle has been accepted as a legal principle, it's an emerging concept. Lex lata, not as a de legiferanda. So nobody in international things, even though Veeramandri in his dissenting opinion said that sustainable development has become a customary international law, I don't think that the Western countries are accepting it, whatever reason is. Because that is why I wrote an article with reference to the sustainable development, the role of Indian court in strengthening, that is the role of municipal law in strengthening international law. So Indian court was the first one to enunciate the principles of sustainable development. Already I told you, right to environment, that is a duty of the state, polluter pays principle, precautionary principle, right to compensation. All these principles emerge from the sustainable development concept. So they spelled out the components of the sustainable development. That is why I said that the role of Indian judiciary in developing international law, that is role of municipal law in developing international law, because we are talking about monism and dualism. So that is what normally say. So these our judgments are earlier followed by South African, but last 5 years, none of our judgments is followed anywhere. That is very sad. I am that. Last 3 or 4 years, our Supreme Court judgments are not quoted in any of the in international foreign courts or international legal forums or etc. etc. So coming to your question, sustainable development, already I told you, it has an economic aspect. It has 3 phases: environment, human rights, and economic aspects. So economic sustainability. So that is what is the thing. So economic sustainable development of the present generation, the ability of the development of the present generation without affecting the ability of the future generation to develop. That is what sustainable development. That is what Rutland report says. That is what our common future. So Rutland report says whatever it is. So economic sustainability is not very well been accepted by others because they have their own. Amartya Sen has also said economics and the relation between economics and development, economics and peace, economics and democracy. All these things have been explored. But today we are third world countries focusing on sustainable development means anthropocentric or ecocentric. Mostly we talk about ecocentric, not anthropocentric. Ecocentric, intergenerational equity, we talk about it. Brown Weiss has categorically stated that. But nevertheless, most of the developed countries, even thing is because they want to, they have a dilemma whether we should go for anthropocentric or ecocentric or combination of both these. Because of this dilemma, it's very difficult to say that sustainable development is accepted principle at international law, attain the status of customary international law. So that is why I'm not able to answer to your question directly, transboundary issues with reference to environmental law. But domestic law, we have sustainable development. All our domestic legislation must comply with the sustainable development principles or whatever it is. Because the environmental legislations, what we call international environmental legislation, is nothing but multilateral environmental agreements, MEAs. We call it as multilateral environmental agreements. But in multilateral economic agreements, so that is why we call it as a, with reference to the climate change, we call common but differentiated responsibility, fairness in international law, or equity in international law, we call it as fairness. So every state has a responsibility to reduce the carbon level, but it is differentiated. So common but differentiated responsibility. So that is what the transboundary economic aspects, every state has to bring down carbon emission by cutting down their industry, whatever, by 2020 and 2040, Schedule 1 country, Schedule 2 country in the framework convention, all these things we talk about. But we'll see, slowly it has to be accepted. The next couple of years, we'll have next, because last international conference, no consensus was reached. So America once said one thing, India said one thing, Brazil said one thing, China said one thing. So we are the major polluting based on GDP. So in sustainability with reference to climate change, so there are difference of opinion. Unless consensus comes, then only we can talk about soft law becoming hard law or new laws are emerging.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, good evening, sir.
DLS,
Sir, good evening, sir.
Please unmute yourself, sir. DLS, sir. Sir has finished.
Very nice.
Good evening, Ambrose. So happy.
So seeing the line in its den, fine.
I am very happy that you have shared your valuable experience with our teachers, studying teachers, because I feel most of our participants are new entrants. This is the first program of its type, especially for the benefit of the teachers who have joined in 2009. So I think most of the participants are belonging to that branch. Am I right, Madam Principal?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Our Professor Ambrose, like yesterday, Professor Ambrose was also our classmate, not only in UG, but also in PG. In fact, he is a master in international law as well as environmental law. So we can say that he is a master of international environmental law. He worked hard when we studied LLM in our reputed Madras University. Though he is having so much of responsibility towards the students all over India, if not all over the world, he is sparing his valuable time for the cause of our teachers. I know him very well for the past 37 years. He is very sincere, always having concern towards the welfare of his students. The thing is, at the drop of a hat, he will raise his voice. So some of his students may not like it. But the raising of his voice is because of his concern towards his students, concern towards the well-being of his students. So I don't want to take much of the participants' time. I take this opportunity to express my wholehearted thanks to Professor, dear friend, Dr. Ambrose, for having shared his much valuable experience with the new entrants of our government law colleges and other participants. I express my personal thanks also, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I thank Madam for giving me this opportunity.
All right, all right.
Oh, sir, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I was able to finish in time. Otherwise, I
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Okay, can I leave?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
thank you. All the best to the
Thank you all the best.
all the things.
Thank you very much, sir.
A wonderful teaching career. So we have retired from the service. You are the torchbearers. The responsibility of maintaining legal education in South India rests on your young shoulders. Keep it up. God bless you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, dear.
Thank you, dear.